Many moons later, horror director Eli Roth makes good on his promise to make a film based on the fake trailer from Grindhouse about and set on entitled Thanksgiving. So years ago, this film named Grindhouse came out, and it was Robert Rodriguez doing a film that was roughly an hour, and Quentin Tarantino doing a movie that was roughly an hour, and they were a throwback to the old, 42nd Street Drive-In kind of movies, and trashy films with fake trailers and fake ads, and they made it look like the film was all beat up, and it was it was a fun throwback double feature that tanked pretty hard in its day, because at the time I said, why is everybody surprised this movie isn't doing well? It's a hard R gore film ode to a genre most people alive don't remember and didn't go to in the first place, and it's being released wide on Easter weekend. Shocking that didn't do very well, but it since has developed a big cult following, and one of the best parts about that film were these little trailers for fake movies that were done between the movies that were done sometimes by other directors. Rob Zombie did Werewolf, Woman of the SS, and Edgar Wright did one called Don't, and Eli Roth did one called Thanksgiving that was like a spoof of 80s slasher movies set around Thanksgiving, and it was a joke. But people liked that joke, and that joke has endured. And now we have a feature-length film based on the fake trailer. Now, it's not really, it's not the throwback 80s feel. It's not all with that faux jump cuts and scratched film and all that junk that I find annoying. It's set in modern day. It is a horror comedy, which you might want to know going in. It is pretty silly at times, but it does deliver on the gore and the nastiness and the viciousness and the kills and all that, and all the isms of slasher films. And I liked it overall. I'm very late to the party on this. Like, I was on a trip, and I came back from the trip after being away for 2 weeks, and I had missed the opening of Thanksgiving, and it was past the date of Thanksgiving, and I'm like, I better see this before it's gone. So probably by the time you watch this will not be in theaters anymore. It'll be well on its way to streaming and probably, hopefully, physical media, as I hope everything gets a physical media release. So the only major names in this film are Patrick Dempsey as the small town sheriff, and Gina Gershon, who's in the film briefly at the beginning. Everybody else, there might be some familiar faces, but no really names that you might know. So the story here is that this is set in a small Massachusetts town. So it might be Plymouth-esque, something like that, and a small town that loves their Thanksgiving because they're near where the Pilgrims came, and they have this statue of a man named John Carver, who is not a villain. He's the villain of the film, but he was a pilgrim, and they're really into their Thanksgiving. There's Thanksgiving decorations everywhere. Everybody wears these John Carver masks and the pilgrim hats. They have a big Thanksgiving parade and blah blah blah. I'm not telling you the whole story. The film opens with a pretty funny set piece, a little over the top, a little sloppy, but a pretty funny set piece that takes place on Black Friday. Basically, the most extreme mothers wanting Cabbage Patch Kids Black Friday melee you can imagine occurs, and people wind up getting killed in very gory ways during this Black Friday massacre. And then we go forward a year, and somebody starts killing people that were involved in that Black Friday melee out of revenge. And this is the titular John Carver. He wears the plastic mask that makes him look like a pilgrim, and the pilgrim hat and the pilgrim clothes, and he's killing people in gross ways, semi-related to Black Friday and or the Thanksgiving holiday here in these United States. So that's what the movie is. It is if I wanted to be snarky and I was doing this in print, I would be like, Thanksgiving is like leftovers, warmed over retreads that aren't as good the second time around. I wouldn't say that about this, but it does feel a lot like I don't even know if I would say this feels like 80s slasher movies. It feels a little bit more like the 90s post-Scream slasher movies, where it's a cast of pretty people who are kind of shallow and not really likable, and who will survive and what will be left of them. It was fun overall. I saw it in the theater with 2 other people in the theater, but again, weekday matinee at this point for a film that wasn't really that successful in the first place is not a surprise. If you're a slasher fan, you'll probably will like it. If you're an Eli Roth fan, you will probably like it. It does have a little bit of the Roth sort of like dude bro thing going on a little bit, and I don't know if that's him high-fiving the kind of people he grew up with, or if that's him kind of making fun of those people. It is set in Massachusetts, so it has aggressive and proliferating use of the Massachusetts accent, whether real or put upon. I guess it was shot in Ontario, so it would have been either Massachusetts actors bust up or people doing the Massachusetts accent. And from somebody who grew up in New Hampshire, who heard a lot of that accent on occasion. The funny thing about movies is they make it sound like everybody there uses the most extreme version of an accent. And really anywhere you go, people sometimes do have accents, but not everybody talks that way. So it's always funny to me to see Massachusetts on film, or the Boston area on film, and everybody is the Pack the Cab, I Have It Yad kind of thing. And everybody has just the most egregious accent. So there's a lot of that in this movie, probably mostly for comedic effect because Roth comes from that area and knows it well. And the occasional deep dish referral to, I go back to Methuen, stuff that are like don't mean anything to anybody unless you grew up in New England. So it's amusing. The kills are gory. Some of it's like shockingly gross and gory. Some of it's a little Fulci-esque in that it just kind of keeps going with the gore and the gross, and you're like, okay, I get it. But if you like this kind of thing, I don't imagine you wouldn't like Thanksgiving. If nothing else, we get another film on that not very tall stack of discs. And see, I'm still in the stack of discs mentality. That short list of films that are horror films set around Thanksgiving. A lot of people, like I know, who are horror fans, like to watch horror films that are based on a holiday around that holiday. Not a lot of Easter horror films, unless you count The Passion of the Christ. Not a lot of Easter horror films. So maybe we need to work on that a little bit. But for Thanksgiving, we've got what is that? Blood something. I always want to call it Blood Harvest, but it's not that's not Cranberry Sauce movie. You got that. You got this. You got a couple others. I can't remember. So if nothing else, we have another Thanksgiving-based horror film for horror hounds to watch every year around the holiday upon we give thanks. What's this movie called? It's called Thanksgiving. Where do you see it in theaters or streaming now?